Picture a quiet room. No music, no crowd, no cameras, just two men standing across from each other. One is Bruce Lee, the other is Steven Seagal. This isn't about movie stardom, popularity, or internet arguments. This is about reality. If these two men ever faced each other in a real fight, stripped of hype and mythology, who would actually walk away? For decades, Bruce Lee has been treated as something almost supernatural. To many, he's either an untouchable combat god, or just a fast actor who looked convincing on screen. Steven Seagal, on the other hand, is often described as either a genuine martial artist with dangerous skills, or a Hollywood illusion built around choreography and confidence. Both views miss the real picture. Bruce Lee was fast, extremely fast, but speed alone was never the full story. What made Bruce Lee dangerous was his understanding of movement, timing, and intent. He studied boxing, fencing, wrestling, and multiple martial arts, not to collect techniques but to understand how humans actually fight under pressure. He tested himself constantly. He sparred. He failed. He adjusted. And then he refined everything until only what worked remained. Bruce Lee believed that traditional martial arts often trapped fighters inside rigid systems. Fixed stances, memorized forms, and rehearsed reactions created predictability. His response to that was Jeet Kune Do, a philosophy rather than a style. It wasn't about how something looked. It was about whether it worked when someone was actively trying to stop you. Steven Seagal's background comes from a very different direction. His foundation in Aikido is legitimate. Aikido focuses on balance, leverage, joint manipulation, and redirection of force. In theory, it allows a smaller person to control a larger attacker without relying on brute strength. When applied correctly, joint locks can be devastating. A broken wrist, elbow, or shoulder ends a fight instantly. However, Aikido relies heavily on specific conditions. It works best when an opponent commits to an attack, grabs, or overextends. It requires timing, structure, and cooperation from the opponent's movement. Against someone aggressive but predictable, it can be very effective. Against someone elusive and non-committal, it becomes much harder to apply. Bruce Lee was not a cooperative opponent. He didn't rush in blindly. He didn't grab unnecessarily. He didn't overcommit. He stayed light on his feet, constantly shifting angles, constantly probing. His strikes were not meant to trade power, but to disrupt balance, vision, and rhythm. He attacked openings the moment they appeared, often before the opponent even realized they existed. In an open environment, Bruce Lee would almost certainly control the pace. His footwork, inspired heavily by fencing and boxing, allowed him to enter and exit range faster than most trained fighters could react. Low kicks to the legs, quick jabs to the face, sudden side steps. All of these would make it extremely difficult for Steven Seagal to establish the grips required for Aikido techniques. If Steven Seagal managed to close the distance and secure a wrist or arm, the dynamic would change instantly. Joint locks are real, painful, and dangerous. One clean application could end the fight. But this is where Bruce Lee's adaptability becomes critical. He trained specifically for broken rhythm, grip escapes, and striking during disengagement. He didn't rely on one response. He flowed from one solution to another. Another important factor is conditioning under resistance. Bruce Lee regularly trained against partners who fought back at full intensity. His methods emphasized pressure testing. Many traditional Aikido demonstrations, including those seen in public footage, involve compliant partners. That doesn't mean Aikido is ineffective, but it does raise questions about how well those techniques translate against someone actively resisting and counterattacking. Then there is mindset. Bruce Lee did not see fighting as a contest of dominance. He saw it as a problem to be solved as quickly as possible. His goal was not to control an opponent for long periods, but to neutralize the threat and move on. He assumed chaos. He assumed unpredictability. He trained for situations where things went wrong. Steven Seagal's public persona projects total confidence and effortless control. But confidence alone doesn't replace adaptability. Real fights rarely unfold cleanly. They are messy, fast, and unforgiving. Systems that depend on precision and cooperation often struggle under those conditions. When you remove emotional attachment and analyze this matchup honestly, a pattern emerges. Steven Seagal possesses real technical knowledge and understanding of joint manipulation. That cannot be dismissed. But Bruce Lee's advantages in speed, timing, footwork, adaptability, and pressure-tested combat philosophy give him the edge in most realistic scenarios. This doesn't mean Bruce Lee would win every time. No fight is guaranteed. Anyone can be caught. But if this confrontation happened repeatedly under real-world conditions, Bruce Lee would likely prevail more often than not. His greatest strength was never his body alone. It was his refusal to be limited by a single system. He was always learning, always adjusting, always prepared for the unexpected. And that is why, decades later, Bruce Lee is still not just remembered as a martial artist or a movie star, but as a benchmark for what real combat effectiveness looks like when ego is removed and reality is fully embraced.